Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of After Impact. And I am here with none other than Agent Smith.
Mr. Bilyeu.
Welcome
How's
to
it
the
going?
show. Good, man. I am very excited about this episode. I'm a
know
total
you are.
freak for David Eagleman.
know this.
Rewatching his episode, I enjoyed as much as I enjoyed recording it. He really is fun for me, man. He's like a glimpse inside what I find utterly fascinating.
Yeah, I know this was a big one for you.
This was, yeah.
And really, I think you find most interesting the neuroscientists and researchers who come on our show.
I really do.
You love it. Yeah.
Because there's something about studying the brain that empowers me, liberates me, fascinates me. It is utterly, utterly interesting. And I had, on the board of the X Prize, Peter Diamandis is oftentimes inviting people he finds fascinating just to come and like check it out. So at an event, a lot of times you'll have people like David there. And it was one of those where I don't think anybody knew who he was but me. And my friend, I knew who he was.
Yeah.
So I like beelined to him and it's like, oh, is this seat taken? Yeah. And like I was like a teenager sitting next to a beetle all night. And I just like, I was picking his brain.
You didn't scare him away, which is
literally.
good.
Do you know what kind of like self-control that took? I was like, don't act like a psycho. Don't act like a psycho.
Yeah.
Don't be a stalker. So yeah, I had to keep myself in check. But it is funny how, for anybody, it's like whatever in your world, like who's the person who's interesting, fascinating, famous, whatever. And so for me, it was like, oh my God, that's David Eagleman. That's the guy that wrote Incognito. Like, I can't believe I'm sitting here talking to him.
Well, it was a fun episode. It was fun watching you guys chat.
Nice.
Definitely. So there's a quote from the episode that you wrote down and I wrote down. And if I were reading in a book, I would have underlined it. It is, science is really an understanding of the vastness of our ignorance.
Yeah.
Hit me really hard. I love that quote.
Yeah, no kidding. I found that interesting. So if I remember right, the question that I asked him was something like, what draws you to science? Why are you interested? And that was his answer, that, for a lot of people, it's, he said, I'm not interested in telling people what they don't know or where they're wrong. That's what he said. I'm not interested in telling people where they're wrong. Like I'm interested in that part of it. And he said, from the outside, it looks like scientists really have it all figured out and that there's really no big questions left to answer. And he said, once you get in science, he said, you just realize like how little we actually understand and that there's this huge world. And it's funny because I was talking to Dr. Drew about that yesterday in the episode. So we filmed Dr. Drew yesterday. It was awesome. I had so much fun with him. But on this question, he takes a very different approach. Not approach, but he has a different feeling. And he was saying that the things that he doesn't understand actually are a bit overwhelming for him. And so his awe is derived from the things that we do understand. Whereas I'm the exact opposite. Like I find the awe in the unknown. I am humbled by, excited by, fascinated by all of the things that we don't know. And so that was something that really, really resonated with me. And I think that from just like the human standpoint of what should you be cultivating in yourself, I think an enthusiasm for the things that we don't know is the right place to start.
Curiosity.
Yeah. Right? Yes. In fact, one of the things that I find most intoxicating in another human being is curiosity. Like when they're curious and excitable, like those are two qualities that I'm immediately drawn to.
And how about transferring this over into a business context? So the unknown can actually be very overwhelming and fear-inducing in a business context. Let's say you're trying to hit your sales goals or make sure that the company culture is in a good place. So how should you be cultivating that same sort of mentality in a business context?
Man, are you ready for a complicated answer?
Yeah, I love complicated answers.
All right, so here's the truth. One of the things that I have cultivated in my own personality is the sense that nothing is performance and everything is practice. So I don't live in crippling fear of a business failing or of looking stupid or anything like that. So for me, I want success and I'm willing to work really hard for it. And my whole phrase, I'm willing to break myself in half to achieve something. But in all of that, like I never see any one thing as the final moment. I never see any one thing as like the game is about to end. And if I'm not winning now, then I'm just not winning. Like it's infinite for me. And my obsession with living forever means that there is no finish line. Yeah. So I've literally tried to remove the finish line from my life. There's no concept of ever completing something. So I'm a big believer in Phil Jackson's notion, things come together, things fall apart. So because of that, I know there are going to be times where you're winning, there's going to be times where you're losing. And so to be overly obsessed with that is, to me, crazy. And losing, for me, is it's temporary, and it's simply an opportunity to figure out what is it that I don't understand? What is it that I'm not able to execute against? Where have I made a foundational mistake that I need to now go back, repair, rebuild, start over, build something a new way, whatever. I'm always trying to look at it from the perspective of that there's something profound to be learned in here. And if the business crumbles, it crumbles, and I can always rebuild. That's why the only things that scare me are brain damage and losing my wife, right? Those are things that I don't see a way back from. So anything else, like you can fight and claw your way back and refigure it out. And I find that really, really interesting. And something, for anybody who follows Gary Vaynerchuk, the most interesting thing to me that he says is this really cocky, it is so cocky and I love it, where he's like, I kind of hope one day I lose everything so I can show people I can build it back.
I've heard him say that, yeah.
And it's like, I love that. I love that because if you're thinking like that, where you don't have a crippling fear of something failing and going wrong, and you have enough the arrogance of belief in yourself that you can figure it out, that you can re-execute, you can rebuild this stuff back up, then you can find the awe in the unknown. You can find you can be filled with a sense of wonder at just, I have to figure this out, right? There's something in here, oh shit, this is an opportunity for me to recognize there's something in here I don't understand. There's something in here that I don't know. I'm going to go out, I'm going to figure out this piece of knowledge. I'm going to add it to my arsenal, and I'm going to become that much more impervious in the future. I love that so much. Now that doesn't mean I'd get freaked out. If things were going wrong here and I had pressure and it's oh my God, we're going to lose the company, or fuck, we're going to go broke, whatever, right? It would be a moment of fear. It would be a moment of stress and anxiety, no question. But I would deal with that by reminding myself, this is all practice. It's not performance. And things come together, things fall apart, and I'm going to do my best. I'm going to rebuild, and I have faith in myself, and I have the arrogance of belief to know that I can rebuild that skill set. And in just refocusing on that, you'll keep moving forward.
And would you agree that once you get to that level where you're no longer afraid, where now it's exciting to you, and you know that you can rebuild, the fear has been removed, would you agree that you're actually even more unstoppable then, that you're kind of accessing a different gear?
No question.
Yeah.
And
that's ironic, right?
Super ironic. And so here's one of the things about it, people that take grand adventures in their life, whatever that may be, starting a company, moving away from home, studying abroad. They say that the people that do that usually have the strongest root system, the strongest home life. So the people with one of the reasons that I've been able to take the kind of risks that I've taken in my life is because of Lisa. And because I have her and I have that support system. And I remember in our diciest of times where it was are we ever going to find success? Are we going to be broke forever? What does that really look like? I thought, my worst case scenario, the whole world may hate me, but this woman loves me, right? The whole world may be burning down around me, but I have this relationship. So it was if that's the worst things ever get, I'm okay with that. And one of my things is to always look at the worst case scenario, which normally people lie to themselves about the worst case scenario. But if you can really be honest about the worst case scenario, which is usually pretty catastrophic, but if you can really look at the worst case scenario and say, I'm okay with that. It's not great. I'm not rushing towards it, but I'm okay with it. Then you're able to really roll the dice and get out there. So got to have that strong base.
That's crazy. It's great. I love it. We've had several neuroscientists on the show now. Why do you think it is so many of them who've come on the show are also so deeply interested in the arts, the humanities, poetry, music? I mean, V.S. Ramachandran, he's quoting Shakespeare. Jimmy Wheel was quoting Yeats. David Eagleman has written fiction.
Yeah.
What is it? Dr. Drew yesterday was talking about, he was quoting Aristotle, and he's deep in philosophy, and he was an opera singer at one point.
Yeah.
What is that? What's going on there?
So I'm going to I don't have an answer. I've never thought about that before. It's utterly fascinating to me. Why is that? I think what draws them to the brain is the sense of wonder, because you don't turn to the brain. I think most people, you don't turn to the brain because it's a, some people might, but I don't think most people turn to it because it's a sense of pain. It's not like the guy who has arthritis who, wants to study joints and all of that to alleviate the pain. It is the most complicated thing in the universe. It's so vast and currently unknowable, and yet every small thing that you learn about it is more fascinating than the one that came before it. And that feeling you get of awe, of joy, of excitement are all the things that art elicits.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you, oh God, this is embarrassing, but true. It's going to give you maybe a mild glimpse into my psyche or be TMI. Going to art exhibits for me is a low form of sexuality. Like that art actually turns me on. And it's like, I often wonder, like, is it cross-wiring? Is it like a bizarre, mild form of synesthesia? Or is it actually just, it's so like heightens my emotions, and each, especially visual art for me, not necessarily abstract, but like paintings, like of things. Like that to me is so stimulating emotionally that it gets confused with the same way that I feel about sex. So I remember in the early days, because my wife is very much not like that, which is fascinating because she is such a talented artist.
An amazing
oh my
artist.
God. So
Yeah.
it is.
That
Did I
is
ever tell you that
fascinating.
at 19, I said I will either marry somebody who can sing or draw?
Yeah.
So I am so turned on by that talent that just wasn't a mystery to me. So I used to drag her to museums and stuff, because for me it was basically foreplay, and I'm like looking at her like waiting for that reaction, and she's like, so it was such a disconnect. But yeah, so
That's
I remember
hilarious.
went through
Artist
a phase,
foreplay.
right?
You heard it here first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you really want to get into artist foreplay. So when I was working at Awareness Technologies and my wife did not have a job, she was taking her art very, very seriously. And so I would come home every day and she would have been working on some master work. And I couldn't wait to get home to see like what she had done. And it was such a turn on. Such a turn on. So that's my guess, is it's that same level of heightened excitement of, is it awe? Like when you hear a song lyric and it gives you the chills, or you look at a painting and it captures something, like my Jordan the Flu game, how it's one still frame, and yet all this stuff comes rushing at me about what it means and my identity and how it's tied up in that. And one of the things that I really hope we're able to capture and further in the art that we will eventually create at Impact Theory is illusions. Not illusions, allusions
with an
right?
A.
So exactly, like literary allusions are where a whole universe of stuff comes rushing in on that thing because it references it, right? So when you watch The Matrix and you realize this is basically the Bible,
Right.
It's like, whoa, like all of those allusions come crashing together, and it's in, an hour and whatever 50 minutes that the movie is, there's like this whole universe of religious thought and imagery and all this stuff that just comes together, and it becomes this, it's such a total intellect experience, emotion and ideology, and it's just incredible.
I got to ask, if you were in Einstein's dream and you had, that's the book where you can live forever, right?
That's one of the short stories.
One of the short stories. All right, and you're living forever. Is one of the things that you would master after impacting the world through commerce and after being a filmmaker? Would it be the brain? Would you become a researcher?
100%.
Yeah.
So there are a few things that I know I would do. That's one, and then call it theoretical physics, cosmology. That to me, like thinking at that grand of a scale is utterly fascinating.
Yeah.
Time and what that means and what it implies,
Awesome. All right, I want to pull a question from our Facebook Live audience.
Let's do it.
So this is from Joe Cross. He says, what impact theories play for capitalizing on Eagleman's upcoming Sixth Sense? The Sixth Sense, I think he's talking about, and Joe, if you're still listening, if you could add some detail here. I think he's talking about how he has the vest that he's
Yep.
rolling
What
out.
was the beginning of that question? Something about impact theory.
Does impact theory have a play for capitalizing on David Eagleman's upcoming success? Yeah.
Just break it down for you, nice and simple. Yeah. Not even a little bit. Not that I'm not interested. I think it's utterly fascinating, but haven't even begun to think about that. And he said something in the episode where he said it's never going to catch on, brain implants and all that. I think he's wrong about that, and I think that is our future. And I think that it's already happening. So let's start with that. Yep. When does it become just de rigueur? I'm going to give it, in less than 40 years, pretty much everyone will have some sort of implant, for sure.
Pretty much everyone. Yeah. Like 80%, 90%.
You will have to keep up, for sure.
Yeah. Plus, because of the machines, you'll have to.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, everyone thinks machines are going to take over. They're not going to take over. People just won't let it happen. We're too jealous. So you will begin to, as robots gain more general intelligence, because they can already beat us at any, like, not any one specific thing, but you can take, like, as long as it only has to be chess or Go or, something that has very structured rules, they're always going to beat us at that. So that's already happening. But they're terrible at general intelligence. As they get better and better at general intelligence, watch. You will get people that it's like, okay, well, we can already give somebody vision. You can already give somebody hearing. What happens when you can start doing things like what David Eagleman is doing with the vest, but you start implanting it. And you can see an infrared. You can feel electrical fields. You can read the stock market, or there's this black box. I'm definitely at the edge of what I understand, but there's like this black mystery box somewhere that every now and then I forget what it's picking up on. What they tell you it's picking up on is sort of the general vibe of the world. And every now and then it'll blip. And then they found that those blips correspond with major catastrophes. The tsunami,
this is a real
9/11, yeah. Now, whether or not my gut instinct is, if you really look at it, there's like all kinds of weird little things. And then when something happens, you sort of retrospectively go, oh, that was a big blip. But if nothing had happened, you would have said, oh, that was nothing. So it's probably horseshit, but it's like that kind of thing. Like, as we get better at actually building devices that can detect that kind of stuff, like, again, with Dr. Drew, what he's talking about, where you do sync up with somebody. And the easiest one that I think is pretty non-controversial, if you put women in a house, their periods will all regulate and they'll all be on their period at the same time. So obviously they're picking up on something. You definitely can feel something when somebody's off, like whether it's just the way that they're carrying themselves, their facial expression, whatever, you get the vibe from somebody. So if everyone is giving off a vibe that you can pick up on, if you can look at them and see them, clearly there's something that they're giving off. And so is there a device in the future where we could begin to interpret this stuff and then jack it in a way that becomes truly interpretable? That's really his thing, is talking about the vest.
Sure.
And I think that ultimately you could plug it into the brain. You know that there are already monkeys right now that can control robotic arms with their mind, right?
No, you just melted my brain.
Really? No, for sure. So what they do is they pin the monkey's real arm behind its back. They've implanted electrodes, which I know you're not going to love, but they've implanted electrodes, and the monkeys just think, like, I want that grape, and the robotic arm reaches out. It's crazy,
I don't know why
dude.
That's funny to me.
It's crazy. I'm telling you, this stuff is already real. Yeah. So I'm being hyper conservative to say that 40 years. It's probably less. It's just that's mass adoption. But now you want to get really crazy, and I think this is one of the notes that I took, and I can't remember exactly what I wrote, but it was about where he said, so the vest can give essentially hearing to deaf people by translating words into vibration patterns that are consistent. So the word cat would always be one vibration pattern, the word dog, so on and so forth. And I said, do they like it? Or is it just like a cacophony where they can't make any sense of it? And he said, well, there's a subset of deaf people that actively are not looking for a solution.
Yep.
And so they hate it. And that one, it didn't hit me on set when he said it, but rewatching it, that caught my attention even more than the vest.
Why?
Because you've read Fahrenheit 451, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in that dystopian future where I have totally modded myself, you refuse to mod yourself and you live out in the woods, right? That's on brand for you. It's on brand for me. Like, we both know that's what's going to happen.
We'll see. You'll see.
And,
but yeah, more than likely I'm going to live in the woods.
Right? Some people are going to say, okay, no way. Like
Yeah.
it's about sort of the purity of the human experience
Yeah.
and like let's not be ridiculous. And so those two factions will arise because that's a human thing. Like that's a trait that the I haven't thought enough about it to know where that springs forth from, but it is self-evident to me that in anything you will have people who love it and then people who hate it. And whether it's just it's popular and so I reject it because it's popular, or like you initially rejected Facebook because it was elitist,
I felt
right?
it was at the time. Yeah.
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 So that's like you're always going to have stuff like that. And so the fact that there are even deaf people who say, not only is this not a hindrance, I don't want a solution. This is part of my identity. This is part of who I am. They have worked so hard to not view themselves as handicapped that it's become part of their identity to have that. And in their minds is actually better, beneficial, and not something that they want to change. So as we begin to
Do
mod
you think
ourselves,
that's a justifiable stance?
I think it's madness. It is madness. And that is where identity begins to work against you. Because if you said, hey, Tom, I've got this thing that's going to let you read electrical fields. Okay. Obviously. Like if I can make use of it and do something with it, of course I want it. Heat fields. Yep. Like slather them on. The only time I'm going to stop you is if it becomes like problematic, right? If it begins to mess with me in some way and begin to damage my ability to find happiness, which at the end of the day is, fulfillment is the real driver for anybody. So if like that was messing me up somehow, it was making it impossible to have like quality relationships, okay, then I don't want it.
Yeah.
But to say like hearing is somehow bad, like it's crazy.
What sixth sense would you want to have first?
I love it when you ask me things that I haven't thought about. Okay, my initial gut reaction, which I reserve the right to change my mind, my initial gut reaction is the ability to read, and I don't even know what would be giving up. I want to more accurately be able to capture somebody's state of mind, to feel it.
Okay, interesting.
So like if you were bumming out, that I would be like, dude, what's up?
Yeah. So if there were an indicator that you could
which
pick
there
up on,
are.
maybe.
I just don't know what outputs you would capture. Like, is it purely visual? Did you know? These are always my favorite.
Probably
Did you know
not.
that there is a therapist bot that records, I think, 60 inputs from the patient. So they're looking at like micro expressions, or looking at posture. They're listening to the way that you're talking, not the words you're saying, but the way that you're talking, and the stats on how much people like talking to that bot are crazy. First, they don't
Really?
feel judged, and then second, it's picking up on so many cues that like a normal human wouldn't be able to pick up on, that it's pretty accurate at getting to. It probably can't go much beyond like, okay, you might be telling me all the happy things in the world, but you're actually sad, depressed, whatever.
Yeah.
But it so accurately identifies what you're really going through that people feel seen.
That's super interesting and really powerful.
Yes.
So that's where the machines can do a lot of good.
Right? And so that's where I want my implants, because I can't consciously pay attention to 60 inputs. But if I had something that was synthesizing those 60 inputs and giving it to me, so it was like this overall sense of, there's something you're not telling me, you're holding like 82% more tension in your left shoulder, whatever that's going to be. But that, as somebody who's interviewed as many people as I've interviewed, I know how useful that would be. When people feel like you can read their mind, it's unbelievable what that does.
Yeah.
It can be unnerving, but it can also be like, whoa, I feel really connected.
Well, and think what it could do to an individual who's trying to understand more about themselves. So now you have something that's reading something and giving you that feedback. So taking the quantified self movement to its next evolution. So now because there's a lot of things happening subconsciously that we're not even aware of unless we really tune into it. That could be powerful.
Very true.
All right. There's a follow-up here on our current discussion. So this is from Joshua Dirksen, I believe. These things sound incredible, but what are the moral implications of taking evolution into our own hands? I think we are too naive about the side effects of brain implants. The question is, should we go down this road? Joshua's a skeptic.
Yeah, so, and fair enough. Here's my answer to that. You can't stop it.
Sure.
So hope is a one-way street. You're always going to move towards hope and, a better future and all of that. And technology is merely hope. That's it. Technology is hope. And as long as it is hope, and that people can take an anti-stance on brain implants until their mother has Alzheimer's, and I come and say, with this implant, not only can I stop her Alzheimer's, I'll reverse it, and in 30 days she'll be exactly the person you remember. Do you want me to do it, yes or no?
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Right? Or your wife, or your daughter, your son.
And then you say, but you have to also implant this thing so we can track your data.
Right.
Right. There's going to be some sort of exchange,
Right.
and then I'd have to do it because you got to do those things for the people you love. So.
Right. So I just think that that is the human condition, and the only way to stop hope is a draconian future. And now let's really get controversial. I would rather see us destroy ourselves in the pursuit of hope than live these horrifying 1984 futures where you're not even allowed to have certain thoughts, and if it even flashes across your face, you're put in prison. And I'm already terrified enough with how much surveillance there is. So, when I think about that stuff, that's where it gets freaky, where we become so afraid of each other and so protective of sort of life at all costs, that we're keeping people who are literally saying kill me, kill me, kill me alive on a ventilator just because it's like the sanctity of life. So I think people need to flourish, and if that means that we have to take a certain amount of risk, I am open to that. And I think it's good I don't make policy, because I don't know that I represent the majority of what people think, but just as my own, where I'm at, that's where I'm at. I don't need anybody to adopt that.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
There's a dystopian novel that's fairly new called The Circle. It's now a movie that's coming out.
I heard about that.
With Emma Watson and Tom Hanks.
Nice.
And it touches on a lot of the sort of privacy surveillance issues that I think we're going to be dealing with very soon here, and already are. Okay. I want to remind everyone on Facebook, we are live answering your questions, plus we're chatting about the episode with David Eagleman that launched yesterday. This is After Impact. You have an opportunity to win the Do shirt that Tom is wearing.
Boom. There it is.
It's up now in the Impact Theory store, so you can order one for yourself, for your friends, for your loved ones, or you can win one. All you have to do is share this live feed, send us a screen grab to connect@impacttheory.com, and we will put you in the running. You can also win a Do shirt. We're going to open up another giveaway right now.
Oh.
Go and subscribe to our newsletter.
Nice.
On impacttheory.com.
Nice.
You can there's a bunch of different places where you can sign up. You'll see it there. It's it's hard to miss. Go sign up for that and send us a screen grab of the welcome letter you get from the newsletter.
Nice. Love that. And if Cindy were here, she may just be beyond the big black curtain. But the Impact Sub giveaway, we got to get to that. We got to be doing that every week, because I'm always looking for people. If you've subscribed to the newsletter, then drop into the comments, #ImpactSub. Whenever you leave a comment on IG, Facebook, YouTube, just because I know that's the core of our community. Like the absolute heartbeat of our community are people that are in the newsletter. It's probably the most intimate thing that I put out. Even my own wife read it the other day, and she's like, Jesus. She's like, these really feel like you.
Yeah.
So it isn't so much like on Instagram I'm trying to give somebody a nugget or something that they can take and use. In the newsletter I'm just talking to a friend.
Yeah. Here's what's going on in your life this week. Here's some of your thoughts. And I will say that people who are signed up to the newsletter and who've been following it for a while, put in the comments right now what you think of it, whether it's bringing you value, what else you'd want to see in the newsletter. We want to make that experience really special for you. We want it to be an exclusive thing that you're getting that you can't get anywhere else. So what else would you want to see in the newsletter? That's the question.
Word.
Cool.
Good question.
And if Cindy were also here, she would remind everyone about the Impact Theory League.
Yes, on Facebook. We can't see you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Cindy is here. She has not died. She is still present.
We were just, she's off camera, but I think we're 10 people away from 1,000. So if you're not signed up to the Impact Theory League, go do it right now.
That would be amazing.
So that we can hit the 1,000 milestone.
Nice. Love it.
Cool. This question is from Laura Dufresne. Laura.
Good old Laura Dufresne.
Always ask questions.
Can always
it's
count on
great.
Laura. Love it.
Love that. What is the most powerful thing you've learned about the brain that changed your entire perspective on how you interact with the world?
That the brain is a liar. Now,
Did you learn that from Incognito?
can I reveal a secret?
Yeah.
I almost never remember like what book I got any one piece of information. So I don't remember.
Okay.
I try to read in like swarms. So when I'm reading about the brain, I'll read a bunch of books about the brain
Yeah.
from a bunch of different authors. And so it all like starts to, like the ideas are there, but like who gave it to, I don't remember.
Yeah.
And I do feel bad because I know these guys pour their heart and soul and I'm so grateful. And at least I could give them credit. So when I remember, I do, like he's the one that gave me that notion of the brain exists in total darkness, total silence, and yet it creates this experience where you're seeing things and hearing things. That was definitely him. So I don't remember where I got this, but certainly this is something that David talks about, which is that the brain is constructing reality. And once I realized that reality was being constructed, that it isn't objective. And we have a guest that we're looking at getting on the show. And so I was watching one of his talks and he went blind. And he talked about, he said, imagine the Jumbotron at your local stadium and how it's made up of all these pixels. And he said the disease that he has is where those bulbs just start going out one at a time. Wow. And he said you get to the point where at first it's just like kind of hard to see. And then he said after a while your brain starts jumping around. And like at first it's, God, what was an example? At first it's like a giraffe. And then no, it's a forklift. And he was like, you're actually seeing a giraffe. And then you're actually seeing a forklift. And he's like, whoa. Then he realized my brain is guessing. And that really what we see as objective reality is an individualized VR experience. Okay, drink that in for a second. Yep. You're living in a VR experience. It's amazingly consistent, so you think it's real. And that is where people get fucked up, because once it starts becoming like your beliefs and that person is attacking me, this bad thing happened to me, those are all lies. They are all guesses. It's all made up. And once you realize that, then you can decide, you can use a different filter. So rather than, oh, it's objective reality, I have to believe it, objective reality doesn't exist. I could, Phineas Gage, look him up, amazing story. He drove what's called a tamping rod through his brain, shot up through his jaw. So he was working on the railroad back in 1892 or whatever. And they used like controlled explosions with like gunpowder, and somebody put too much on one or something and he hit it and it shot like a 3-foot rod up through his jaw, out the top of his head. He never lost consciousness.
Whoa.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But it took like, what'd they say, like a teacup full of brain matter. Not the amount of brain matter I would ever want to lose. And they said his personality changed in an instant. And he went from like this really nice guy. He was really cordial, really helpful. And that's how because he was one of the like managers on the railroad or whatever. He had like a pretty high position. And then he was just like a jerk and nobody wanted to be around him. And they're like, what on earth? You change the structures of your brain, everything changes. So my whole thing is like, once you realize that you are the sort of the sum total of your experiences, your hardwiring, genetics, like that you can then take control of that, really put it on a new path, learn different things, believe different things, then you can get yourself going in a much more useful direction. And I find that most people think, well, it's real and therefore like I have to abide by it. Once you break out of that, you really start breaking out of the matrix.
And that was something that, to call back to one of our first episodes, Moran Cerf talked in depth about, was the ability to change that thinking, change your narrative by first changing your memories, by reconstructing what you think of the past, because already it's a reconstruction, already it's a story you're telling yourself. So why not make it a good one?
Yep. David Eagleman talked about that. He said, your memories change in weird and wonderful ways. Because every time you pull a memory forward, think about this for a second. Every time you pull a memory to think about it, whatever, you rewrite it just a little bit when you put it back. Mm-hmm. And so that's why your memories evolve and change over time. That's why people conflate things and they think, oh, I remember my parents telling me that at Disneyland or whatever. And your parents are like, we didn't tell you that at Disneyland. That was like at your 7th birthday party. And you're like, no, I can imagine it purely. And then they pull out a photo and they're like, this, remember? Yeah. And you're like, whoa. And it's like very jarring and disconcerting. And so, yeah. understanding that about your brain is critical.
And is it also that you're bringing to bear all of the experiences you've had since that memory? Like everything that's shaped you from that time up until the current point where you're drawing back for the memory?
Yeah, I don't know if it's that holistic, but certainly the person that's doing the rewriting is now that new version of you
Yeah.
that is that. So you would shape it in a different way than maybe you would have shaped it 10 years ago. And so like basically it's, you know, kind of what happens to a Hollywood screenplay when 8 different people have touched it. But in this case, it's 8 different versions of yourself rewriting that same memory over time at different, is it epics or epochs?
Epics.
Epics?
Yeah.
It's weird because it's
EPOCH.
EPOCH, so it should be epoch in my opinion. But then I refuse to say texted. That sounds ridiculous to me, even though I know it's real. So epics, like it's, you know, that version of you and those different epics, rewriting it. So it's pretty interesting.
All right, let's jump over to Facebook again for another question. Let's see.
By the way, while he looks that up, if anybody is here in LA, Cindy, maybe you'll know better. I don't know why you would, but as the voice of the community, I'm going to be speaking tonight at the Secret Entourage event. Does anybody know? Can I invite people to that? It's a bar, right? So anybody should be able to come. I'm going to pretend that anybody can come. If you're here in LA, it's in Santa Monica. We'll post the details. Cindy, can we post details? That would be amazing. I'll be there at 7 p.m. tonight. So this is for that live audience. 7 p.m. tonight. Come, as always, whenever I speak, barring any weird thing with my schedule, which tonight I do not have, other than I have an episode tomorrow. Is the episode tomorrow really early? I don't think so. So I'll stay and answer questions until the last question is answered. So if that takes us till 2 a.m, then till 2 a.m, I shall stay. So come, check it out, get any and all questions answered that you want. So details to come. Keep your eye on Facebook for the whens and wheres.
All right, I'm going to actually ask you one of my own questions.
Nice.
So David says that the way we create new connections and expand our brain is through new experiences. So he was big on that. Mm-hmm. How important is it for you that you're putting yourself in new situations and experiences? I know you read a lot, but are there other ways you seek novelty in order to create connections? You
know, it's interesting. Not nearly enough, I would say. And I was rewatching the episode. I was thinking about that, and I thought, man, like, so the examples that he gives, brushing your teeth with your left hand, driving home a different way. I've done the left-handed brushing a lot. Mm-hmm. Driving home a different way I've done a few times, but now with Waze, it's like I'm always just trying to take the fastest way, which can be different.
It's also Los Angeles, so.
Yeah, truth. So that is, I think, good. But it gets way more interesting when you start talking about learning samba or like something that's really dramatic and really novel that keeps your brain fresh. And I don't do enough of that. Reading really is my answer to that, with ideas in equal ideas out. Yeah. But it's sort of to the side. It's one of those amazing pieces of advice that I'm not taking.
It would be an interesting question to ask Tim Ferriss, I think.
Yeah. That kid is always doing super novel stuff.
Trying different things. Cool. All right. Here's a question from, again, Joshua Dirksen. He says, perhaps we've always been heading towards this hive mind experience. Do you feel that this is a possibility in the future? What would it do?
I don't know. Like when he says hive mind, I think of like literally coming together where it's, I think that humans I'm so speaking now from a Western perspective, and I'm at least aware of it. I think that certainly from a Western standpoint, we so embrace individuality and reject the notion of being consumed by the hive as a whole. I don't see that, and that with my own Western perspective is so dystopian for me that I just can't see us naturally coalescing around that. Like, I read a story once, I do not remember where, in what book, when, but there was this really fascinating thing where when two people, and I say this because this is where I think we're headed, where when two people come together, that they could instantly transfer like their entire universe of knowledge, feeling, everything, so that it wasn't me like trying to articulate like this is what I've been through and all that. Like we would jack in, like they had a way to there was this thing like tendrils or something that would come and connect, and then you would have an instant brain meld. And that always stuck with me as like, how amazing would that be to like be so raw and open and understood by that person that there is no need to spin or couch or anything. It's just boom, it's there. Like they get it. So you would really become the sum total. So it's like you may have done things that are a bit assholey at times, and I think we all have, but like they would feel in the sum total, but I still get who you are at like the core of your being. And that always fascinated me. And I think that would be interesting, where you don't have to be transparent if you don't want to be, but that if you wanted to be, you could be it so profoundly that you could have these truly amazing connections with people.
Cool. All right, this question is from Chris Berry. Do you think that the insight that our reality is constructed can be used to increase emotional intelligence, specifically emotional self-awareness?
I've never thought of it as leading specifically to self-awareness, because I think it takes self-awareness to really understand that. But it becomes incredibly usable. And when you start thinking about what you want to do, like I will give you that one of the, this gets complicated and I understand that, but depression, one of the most important things you can do to combat depression is to understand, A, it's just neurochemistry, and B, learn to pump different chemicals by choosing to focus on something upbeat, uplifting. And they've done studies on this. What you focus on will dramatically affect your neurochemistry. So look, there are times where the depression is just so ingrained and so wired that this isn't going to work. But I think especially in the early stages, as you're sort of first going down a depressive or anxious road, and this is how I've combated anxiety in my own life, like to focus on, instead of all the ways that it could go wrong, you start focusing on all the ways that it could go right. And just knowing that your brain is telling you a lie by focusing on the obsessively, like this could go badly, this could go badly. And so, okay, well, if my brain is going to focus on a lie, because it's just as big of a, sort of lie to say it's going to go right and obsessively focus on that. But I know that if I focus on the negative, that my brain is going to wire for that. I'm going to get more and more anxious. The anxiety then begins to build towards a panic. And so now you've really got this problem over here. Or I can focus, hey, it's going right. And I'm forcing myself to focus on it. So it feels super artificial. But in doing that and really focusing on that, then it's like I feel empowered and I'm excited. I can't wait. And so one of those is useful and one of them is not. And so that's what you get out of really focusing on the fact that, you can choose which of those to let your brain do, instead of just going, like letting your mind wander to the negative without saying, I don't have to do that. Like I can force my mind over here.
Yeah. If there were one takeaway from this episode that people could use and apply to their lives, what do you think it would be?
From this episode in particular, I mean, there's really two things. So, and we've talked about them both already, but one, to be excited by the vastness of what we don't understand. And what I want people to take away from that is to remain open, right? Always be open. So rather than, and I remember asking him the question, he was interviewing a guy named Sadhguru. That, have you seen that interview?
No.
So visually, it was so arresting because Sadhguru is like a caricature. He's like all these big flowing robes, this huge white beard. If I remember, I think he's wearing a turban. But it was like, he looks like a stereotype of a guru. Like if you were going to draw a guru for a cartoon, you would draw this guy. So I was like, a neuroscientist with like the most guru looking guru ever. Like this is going to be weird. It was so awesome. And Sadhguru was amazing. And I want to get him on the show because he is unbelievably interesting. And I think he is like the definition of when I say like, there is clearly something I don't understand. Okay. So man, when I say I'm not religious, but like there's something, I don't know what it is. Like I can't conceive of infinite time. I can't, like, if every universe is like a soap bubble floating in a froth, what's the froth? Like you can be as recursive as you want. And eventually you get to and there's something I don't understand, right?
Right.
So just saying that it's, there's more dimensions, it's multidimensional. Okay, well, what are those dimensions sitting in? Or who created those dimensions? Or what is time? What exists outside of time? Like, clearly, we don't understand something. And this guy has the ability to go back and forth from like just raw spirituality to science. Like, he could sit there with a scientist and not be saying, the scientists don't understand what they're talking about. And David Eagleman was hyper capable of talking to Sadhguru and be like, yeah, like, this is amazing. Thank you for that insight. And science doesn't know everything. So it was so cool. And so it was two people that have an open mind, right? They just want to better understand this human experience. And there are things like David Eagleman has said many times, like, you want to remove things from the sphere of possibility. You want to be able to say, like, okay, we can eliminate that. It's a false path. It doesn't make sense. But that you want to embrace that there's a vastness of things that you just don't yet understand, and to be open. And I felt the same from Sadhguru. So that was just like, when people are truly open to that, it's beautiful. And then the other thing is your brain is lying. And we've gone into so much detail, but those are two incredibly powerful notions.
Awesome. Well, I think that's it for today. No more questions from our audience.
All right.
But just a reminder, everyone, you can win the Impact Theory Do shirt, which Tom is wearing, by signing up for our newsletter, sending us a screen grab of your welcome email that you get from us. Send it to connect@impacttheory.com, or sharing this live feed, which is a little late, but you can still share it. This content exists on the World Wide Web forever, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I had a lot of fun with this episode. I hope you guys have all seen David Eagleman on the show. It was so much fun. His insights into the brain, just the way the human minds work, is unparalleled. I've learned so much from him. It was really a lot of fun. And I think just the mechanics of the interview went very well. And I think the overall show was great. So hopefully you guys have seen it. This is a weekly show. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. And until next time, my friends, be legendary. Take care.